When he stepped down as Deputy Chief Justice, he trended on social media for 3 days. Not bad for an ex-Robben Island prisoner turned lawyer, turned High Court and then Constitutional Court judge. He's a man with high moral fibre who's never been afraid to speak truth to power, even now with the Fees Must Fall protests. This is the MoneyMakers. I'm Bruce Whitfield. Tonight I'm joined by a man who not only helped put pen to our Constitution, but also an author, the former Deputy Chief Justice, Wits Chancellor Dikgang Moseneke, to discuss his first book entitled My Own Liberator. And it's a story about a lifetime outside of the law, some time in prison, then the real struggle to get into the law and getting into the law after prison in a really unusual way in Pretoria with a group of Afrikaners, guys who previously had you locked up in Robben Island.
Yes, it was a bit of a fine cheek on my part, wasn't it? To basically come and say, I'm going to be one of you. In fact, I would like to, peddle the skill of lawyering within a setting in which essentially I was a slave. I mean, I was oppressed, depressed and suppressed, if you like, but still had enough skill and the qualifications to become a practicing attorney, called to the bar, and took silk. And I often say, Bruce, my letters patent, the little piece of paper that says you're a senior counsel, was signed by F.W. Dikgang at a time when I had no right to vote. And yet I enjoyed all the precedents of being a silk or a senior counsel. So it's been quite a journey from that point when I came out of prison to the point where I had the celebrated status of being senior counsel. And from there, it really meant that I would have to make a decision whether I'd carve career in law or in politics.
Are you sorry you didn't go the political route?
No, certainly not.
Because you were, as a young activist, you were a young PAC activist.
Yes, of course. I was an Africanist, and I over and over again talked about the importance of the primacy of the interests of African people. And when you carve a strategy on how to change society, you look at the primacy of your own interests and you understand the world through that particular lens. Otherwise, you're lost, you're floating around all over the show. So it's quite important to have a platform which I found useful, and I talk about it in the book. But beyond that, my choice was quite unequivocal. Come 1994, I was clear in my own mind, I'm not going to be a backbencher. I'm going to go to Parliament. But even more fundamentally, the difference between politicians and freedom fighters. The former dabble with the possible, they say, expediency. And the latter would always be concerned. Liberators, freedom fighters, are concerned about that pure, that just society that we think we all are entitled to.
How many liberators truly deliver just societies? Pure liberators in that context, in that sense?
It happens rarely, I know now. Obviously, the revolutionary zeal is that you can migrate society from one dark corner into a lit up space, hopefully free, capable of economic activity that is just and fair, capable of democratic processes that are credible, and that all of us would end up the happier, and will find our potential, unleash it, and become better people and a better society. But it rarely happens, of course.
We look at the context where we sit right now, and people with short memories believe we're in the darkest period of South African history, and nothing could be further from the truth. We've come from a very, very dark period, through the 1960s, through the 70s, through Verwoerd, through Forster, through P.W. Botha. F.W. de Klerk takes over from P.W. Botha in 1989, and the first thing he does of any significance is announce the release of Nelson Mandela and the unbanning of political parties. That's 1990. February. We go through an extraordinary period of agonizing transition there. It was the politics of compromise. Was it the right call?
I think the call was right. And I'm not saying it only because I ended up being Nelson Mandela's executor.
You were virtually his next door neighbour, and you go and have tea with him one day, as you regularly did, and he said, "I need you to do me a favour." And off he went and trotted off a will and said, "You're in charge of this."
Yes, indeed. And in many ways, one is called upon quite often to defend his legacy. I think it was a right call. I think he created a platform through which we could have actually migrated society to a much better space. Some things we have done, Bruce, as you know. We've created some veritable institutions of democracy. The court where I worked, deeply proud of the jurisprudence, deeply proud of how we've tried to defend the democratic transition.
You say tried. You've succeeded
We
to
have,
date
by
in
and large,
defending.
succeeded. The sad thing is that it doesn't exclude all the wobbles. And remember that there were always, I think, hopes that the court would be more compliant. It never was. I can't be compliant because I am who I am. And many of my colleagues, predecessors, Arthur Chaskelson, Richard Goldstone, Ismail Mohammed, Johan Kriegler, these are great South Africans.
You look at the credibility that was questioned of Mogoeng when he was appointed as Chief Justice.
Yes.
He was challenged on that. There were lots of people deeply cynical about his appointment. And he has truly stood up to the task.
Yes, he has come through. And I've had the privilege of being very close when that process happened and sat out there. And we came to agree that his real legacy lies in being with the good boys and not with the bad boys and girls. And he's come through, and I'm delighted. And you heard when I retired saying, "I happily leave it in your hands, and I know you will do the right thing." So that is a wonderful story. But institutions have been under severe challenge.
They have been threatened and challenged almost persistently, almost as if the purpose of the law is to consistently test it. I mean, that feels what it's like from the outside. It's the game of cat and mouse with the law, which is perverse.
It is perverse. Let me tell you, I worked there for 15 years, and I've seen challenge after challenge, whether it's about the scorpions or it's about this new lot, whether it's about IPID, whether those cases have come through the courts. And I was saying to somebody only this morning, we're a little like a dam wall, carrying more and more weight and pressure from the dam that's filling up. And God forbid if the dam wall bursts.
What would cause the dam wall to burst?
Well, all contestation currently, sadly so, ends up with the courts. You see, in a functioning democracy, if there's a dispute, let's just say it's of business in kind, there will be sides where that difference will be mediated credibly, and the people would accept the outcome. If there are difficulties in Parliament, you don't expect courts to be called upon to say whether Parliament has acted lawfully or not. You expect Parliament, firstly, to act lawfully, and secondly, to have sites of mediation away from normal litigation. No, it is not so.
Lots of parts of the system have failed, and they failed in the process of checks and balances. And almost in cricketing parlance, you're the backstop behind the wicketkeeper.
Yeah, the wiki has to catch just about everything.
And then the Constitution calls the long stop.
Yes, we the long stop, and it's just getting more and more intolerable, because think about it. Political parties fight internally. They come to us. They fight in Parliament amongst each other. They come to us. They fight about rallies. They come to us.
You were instrumental in drawing up the constitution of this country. You were part of it. Tuli Madonsela was part of it. Lots of great South Africans were part of drawing up that constitution. The constitution made provision for precisely the scenario we find ourselves in right now, and that is the long stop of the law. Will it hold?
You're right. You're dead right. But we never thought the other institutions will malfunction to the extent where the judges have got to be true wicket keepers in all instances. You would hope that within cabinet things will get resolved there. You don't think heads of states would rush to court and interdict people from doing their work and so on. So yeah, it is a bit worrying.
In your epilogue, you write, "The people, courts of law, civil society and all democratic institutions ought to ensure the meticulous compliance by all and by the political elite in particular in this democratic accountability is all important. For the first time this year, there was an element of democratic accountability playing itself out in South Africa. Agree?
Yes. I mean, you know, I also say there that the people ultimately are the real vanguards of any constitution if it is to be any good. And that it is not the courts, where I've worked with, you know, as a privilege. It's not the public protector. It would not be any of those institutions. Ultimately, the people, the highest form of accountability is electoral accountability. It's people saying, we won't have you behave like this. And that is very vital whilst the wall is still holding.
We've got the damn wall holding. We've got politics getting increasingly noisy and increasingly messy. We're seeing institutions of state or the apparatus of state ostensibly being used to badger enemies of the president. Probing Gordon faces going on trial on the 2nd of November, charged with fraud. Your reading of what's really at play? You've watched this game for a long time.
Yeah, I'm not going to make a call on that to the extent that it's still in the courts. You're a senior member of the judiciary, retired. I don't want to trample on the terrain of your colleagues who are still going to make a call on it. I don't want them to sit and say, hey, Dikgang Moseneke, retired Deputy Chief Justice.
He's retired, but out.
He's saying this or that about this. So I will not going to go to that. But let it suffice, Bruce, to remind ourselves, public power is allotted and given only for one purpose, to advance public good. Never to battle one's enemies, never to advance and give out patronage, never to for self-aggrandizement, never for any of those purposes.
But that's where we've
ulterior or otherwise, is only given exclusive purpose to advance public good, to make you and me better in our lives as citizens than before. And if it runs beyond its restricted terrain, then contradictions, of course, increase and society gets into turbulence. I think that's
Are we there now?
We are very close to there, certainly. All the institutions are being tested quite seriously. And the people themselves are called upon, as my colleague often says, you be the judge. But the people are called upon to be the judges.
Retired Deputy Chief Justice Dikgang Moseneke. My Own Liberator. It's a memoir of his time, not only on the bench, but also, of course, a turbulent history of South Africa. The former Deputy Chief Justice, Wits Chancellor Dikgang Moseneke. Thanks so much for coming in and sharing your time with us this evening. Lots more issues of justice, social justice, and complicated matters to talk on future Moneymakers. Until then, good night.